Call to order tonight's meeting of the McKinleyville Community Services District Board of Directors meeting for June 5th. May I have a roll call, please?
Director Brashsanti?
Here.
Director Burke?
Here.
Director Couch?
Here.
Director Mayo?
Present.
And Director Corbett?
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dr. Bill. Are there any additions to the agenda?
No, Vice President Burke, there are no additions to the agenda.
And from the board? Do I have a motion for approval of the agenda?
I make a motion that we approve the agenda.
Second.
Do we need a roll on that? Roll call, please.
Director Brashsanti?
Aye.
Director Couch?
Yes.
Director Mayo?
Yes.
Vice President Burke?
Yes. We have no closed session scheduled for tonight's meeting. We have no public hearing scheduled for tonight's meeting. In fact, there's no one in the audience for tonight's meeting, so we have no public comment. Have we received any written communications?
No, we have not received any written communications.
At this time, I would like to pause in our agenda and have a little public comment around the sad farewell to Emily Falter and celebrate the time that we have had with you. And Greg, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you. Yes, if the board's not aware, tonight will be Emily's last night as the board secretary, and her final day for McKinleyville Community Services District will be tomorrow. At this point in time, I would like to thank Emily for all the work that she's done on behalf of the board of directors. If she ever decides that she doesn't want to work at the bank, she could probably become a travel agent with all the travel stuff that she's done for myself and also for the board. Very good at coordinating and keeping the cats corralled. I think I just would like to say at this point in time that Emily's attention to detail and her professionalism with preparation of the board packet has been exemplary, and her personableness related to dealing with the board members and with staff has also been exceptional. Emily's going to be sorely missed, and I just wish her all the luck in the world with her new endeavors. And at this time, I think that if the board would like to make some comments, I will be back in just a minute.
Would the board like to make comments?
Oh yes, Emily, thank you so much. I don't know what I would have done without you when I first started, and he's absolutely right about professionalism. You were nothing but a professional. You always got things done so quickly for us, and you were so helpful. We really will be missed. Thank you.
I think I might have overpurchased on the cake.
We can share tomorrow.
But we can share it tomorrow. Who would like a piece of cake?
No. We all have to.
I always like cake.
I was just going to say thanks, Emily, for everything. You've been wonderful, secretary. Good luck. And
yeah, I especially appreciate all those little things you've done. It really means a lot to me. I miss you. But I do have your cell phone number, so you might be booking tickets for
Do you have it?
a while.
That was something I tried to be careful.
Yeah,
but you just get the new one.
You weren't careful. Anyway, thank you so much.
I echo everything that's been said, and I think one of the telling ways that you do your work is it's seamless. Everything you're involved in seems to move forward seamlessly. You keep us well prepared. You keep Greg well prepared. Really appreciate the work you've done with us. I'm sad to see you go, but of course, you've made a decision, and so like Greg said, I wish you the best in your future endeavors, and know that you won't be too much of a stranger in this community.
Right.
So thank you so much for your service, and I'd also like to open it up to staff if anyone in this forum would like to say more. Thank you, Emily, for her time with the district.
I'll weigh in. Dean, I've said this to you in person, but I think I should also say it to you in public. Thank you a lot. You've been a huge help to support services. Not just being willing to help, but sharing your knowledge, your expertise, your ideas. A great benefit and a great value. So we really appreciate it. I'm sad that I know you do well where you go with it.
I'm glad you obviously like chocolate.
I do like chocolate.
And of course, I don't know if you would like to say anything, it's not necessary, but we appreciate you greatly.
I appreciate the board for being, those of you who were here when I first started, being patient with me as I learned the ropes of my new job. And that made it so that the newer board members could feel that I was seamless. I guarantee I wasn't always that way. But thank you for your support over the years as well, and for being easy to work with. I appreciate it. Thank you. It's been a good experience for me.
Great.
You did it well.
And so moving on, the next item is the consent calendar. Consent calendar items are expected to be routine and non-controversial, to be acted upon by the board of directors at one time without discussion. If any board member, staff member, or interested person requests that an item be removed from the consent calendar, it shall be removed so that it may be acted upon separately. Are there any items that anyone from the board would like to remove from the consent calendar?
Not me. I would move that we approve the consent calendar.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
And roll call?
Director Barsanti,
Yes.
Director Couch,
Yes.
Director Mayo,
Yes.
Vice President Berg.
Yes. All right, moving along, continued in new business. We have item E1 on page 57, being led by Leslie Risky.
It is the duty of the Board of Directors to vet and select the most qualified candidates to become members of the Recreation Advisory Committee. The Board of Directors is obligated to interview all candidates, discuss the candidates' qualifications, and select the most qualified candidates to serve on the committee by a majority vote. There are currently 2 alternate member openings on the Recreation Advisory Committee. Staff has posted sufficient notice to local media and at district facilities of the vacancies for the RAC. Mr. George Wheeler submitted a letter of application on May 6th. It can be viewed in attachment 1. George Wheeler is a McKinney resident who has served as an MCSD board member for 4 years. During his service as a board member, Mr. Wheeler served as the board liaison to the Recreation Advisory Committee and is well versed in the responsibilities and workings of the committee. His experience and enthusiasm for community service to community will be presented to the RAC and the MCSD board. Staff recommends that the board consider the information provided, air questions, take public comment, and vote on the appointment of George Wheeler to the Recreation Advisory Committee for a 4-year term as an alternate member.
Thank you. Any board comment? Public comment? General Manager, do you have any?
Yeah. Regarding Mr. Wheeler's letter of interest, I think it is, we do know George very well. I would have hoped that he would have put together a little bit better letter of interest for this, so I don't know if it interests the board to ask him to resubmit, or if you want to just go ahead and elect him to this alternate seat if you would like. But that's completely up to the board. But in those are just my opinions.
Any comment or discussion from the board?
I would move that we appoint George.
Okay.
I'll second.
All right. Roll call.
Director Barsanti,
Yes.
Director Couch,
Yes.
Director Mayo,
Yes.
Vice President Burke.
Yes. And I plan on giving him a little jab in the ribs about his letter. I think we should keep it in mind, although we know each other well, this is our mode of communication with the public, and the public knows him pretty well. But
Well,
it's nice to have a full picture.
I 100% agree, but at some point, if somebody wants an explanation about how George ended up on the Rec Advisory Committee, I don't think his letter is very explanative of how or why he was chosen for the seat. So, maybe we could pass a message on to him that if a voting seat comes, that maybe he would need to supply us with a little bit more detail on his expertise for the position. Just a thought. Or not.
Yeah, Leslie, that was going to be my question. I don't remember what we decided, but I know we had a discussion some time back about alternates, voting members and alternates, and whether an alternate just automatically moved up into the seat or not. But I don't remember what we had decided. Could you refresh me on that?
It is not automatic. It comes to the board.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, because you basically appointed him to an alternate seat, not to a seat. So he's basically occupying an alternate seat. If a voting seat does come open, he would have to apply for that seat.
If we were ever questioned about our vote, I think the board item provides the background that George might not have fleshed out. So we've roll called that, and we can move on to item E2. Item E2, considering acceptance of phase 2 of the water and sanitary sewer main line rehabilitation master plan being presented by Greg Orsini on page 59.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. You like that? So anyway, this item was before the board last month, I believe, the month before last, and we neglected to include the main line the water master plan phase 2 and the sewer master plan phase 2 documents, and that was what the board was approving. The board voted to approve those, but we're bringing this back to answer any questions that the board might have about the actual verbiage in the master plan, since they weren't included. We did get a fairly comprehensive presentation by GHD about what the nuts and bolts of the two master plans was. And tonight I'm asking the board, the board review the information provided, discuss, accept public comment, and approve phase 2 of the water and sanitary sewer mainline rehabilitation master plan. And at this point in time, I will ask, I can answer any questions that you might have related to the master plans.
Any questions right off the bat? I have one, which is just, will you just refresh our memory and give us really the high-level overviews of the phases of the master plan? As I remember, we're going from really big picture and then narrowing down into more and more detail.
Absolutely. So phase 1. We proposed that the master plan would basically be comprised of 3 phases. Phase 1, which was passed prior to our last rate study being accomplished and passed, was to figure out about what the actual expense would be to replace the pipes in the ground, and how that would go about happening, whether they would be direct open trench replacement, bursting, or lining of pipes. At that point in time, we were given a fairly summary cost to replace all the pipes in the ground, and the board then used that information to go through the 218 process and update our rates, which was happening anyway at that same time. And that's when the board had decided that $1 million a year be encumbered for use in the replacement of the pipes for water, and $1 million for the sewer system. That was pretty much what phase 1 was. Phase 2 now is basically the scheduling of that, how that's going to work. And phase 2 basically consists of by size of pipe the replacement schedule, and that's laid out in both of the master plans. As you can see, there's maps that we can then incorporate into our GIS system that will allow us to then be able to make schedules for replacing the pipes. And phase 3, which we're in negotiations for a scope of work right now with the consultant, will further identify areas that might not necessarily be replaced because of size, and more about the condition of the pipe. And that will require some destructive testing of the pipes in the ground, and also an analysis of soil conditions to be able to get an idea of because not only is there corrosion from the inside to the out, but there's also corrosion from the outside to the in. So we'll be monitoring some pipe and doing some random sampling related to soil conditions, and then also internal thicknesses, wall thicknesses of the pipe in select areas, and then refine our scheduling for the replacement of all the pipe. And I would suspect that then there'll probably be a phase 4 that will go further in depth related to that, and maybe identify the means of replacement, whether it's going to be open trench or whether it's going to be bursting, and much more specific.
Thank you. It's nice to get that level of summary. Any questions?
Yeah, does this include all the rate increases and everything, this particular thing that we're talking about right now? Because there was a whole bunch of different, and I wasn't real clear what was what.
There are a bunch of attachments, but the appendices for the rate setting, that is included as an appendix, that's already been approved.
That's
Yeah,
already-
yes, the appendix for the rate analysis was part of the phase one, but it's mentioned in this, so it was attached as, so basically, maybe I should have provided a little bit more clarification. So phase one has been completed. Phase two now replaces phase one. So the phase one, so that you don't need this document. This document stands alone. You don't have to read phase one and then read
I
phase
see.
two.
Thanks for catching me up.
So it's
Yeah.
appendicized.
Yes.
Great.
But just the one thing I wanted to note is, I'm so glad that we are being forward-thinking in doing this, and then it also feels good that when you read this report and it says, we're also looking for these immediate needs and places where there are failures, and that's not really coming to, this report is not really highlighting that we have these immediate needs and failures. It's looking at the lifetime and being proactive. That makes me feel like, we're not reactionary, we're really setting a good.
Right, and I think, and James could speak to this if he would like. That was pretty much the hitch in phase three. We were very uncomfortable, James and I both were very uncomfortable with the level of analysis that they proposed in phase three to basically go in and identify areas of immediate need. And so that's what we're going to do now. In fact, we have a meeting within the next week, I think, either the end of this week or the beginning of next week, with their corrosion specialist, and we're going to sit down with them, and we're going to ask for a much more definitive assessment means for going out and sampling the condition of our system, so that if say a 6-inch pipe, since we're going to start with the largest pipes and work our way down to the smallest pipes, that say that somewhere in the system there's a 6-inch pipe that's due to fail way before it's scheduled to be replaced, that we know about that, and that take a higher priority over maybe a pipe of a larger diameter that's still serviceable beyond its expected life.
Great. I'm glad to hear that we're pushing for more certainty. Thanks, Ray. Any further comment? Any public comment? And at this point, I would entertain a motion on item E2.
Oh, I guess I make a motion. You're usually making the motion, Barry. I make a motion that we accept, what is it called? Phase two, right?
Does that provide clarity enough for you, Board Secretary?
She knows which one.
Yeah, her staff recommendation.
Yeah, if things like this, if you just were to say you make the motion per staff recommendation, that way there'd be a little bit more clarity on it.
Do you want me to read the motion?
No, you don't have to read it. All you have to do is say per staff recommendation.
I think that way she can just take the language that's in here, and then you don't have to say it all.
Yeah.
So what do you think you want me to say?
Just what you already said. You're done.
You want to say it again? I'm done, okay.
You're done.
Yeah.
He was just giving you advice.
Yeah.
It would be acceptance of the item as per staff recommendation, and that way they can use this language.
Yeah, so I say.
We're good. Okay, so we have a first.
I agree.
Do you have a second?
I will second the motion. Or did Dennis already do it?
It's all right, whatever. I can hear it.
Roll call.
Director Barsanti,
Yes.
Director Couch,
Yes.
Director Mayo,
Yes.
Vice President Burke.
Yes. So we are on item E3, page 222, being presented by Emily Tuffle.
SDRMA provides risk management and risk financing for special districts and local government agencies. McKinleyville Community Services District has been a member for many years. SDRMA is holding elections to fill 3 seats on their board of directors. Attachment 1 is the complete election packet with the candidate statements of qualifications and official election ballot, which needs to be returned prior to August 21st. The 5 candidates who met the qualification requirements are Bob Swan, Jesse Claypool, Patrick O'Rourke, Sandy Seifert Raffleson, and James Hamlin. Staff recommends that the board review the information provided, select up to 3 candidates for the SDRMA Board of Directors, take public comment, arrive at a consensus, and authorize Board Vice President to execute the official ballot for submission to SDRMA.
Board comment?
Do we want recommendations, or how would we like to proceed?
Recommendations would be great. I'm not personally familiar with.
So I know I know 4 of these people relatively well, 2 very well, and 1 I just know who it is. Anyway, I would recommend Bob Swain, Jesse Claypool, and Sandy the 2 incumbents. And Bob, the 2 incumbents, and then Jesse Claypool. The 2 incumbents I've known for quite some time, and they're remarkable.
Yeah, I know.
Worked with Bruce Rupp on there, so Bruce is very high on.
I read through all of the candidates, letters and qualifications, and also did some research, and it looks like I came up with the same as Dennis. It looks like Bob Swain and Jesse Claypool and Sandy Seibert also.
Any input, Director Couch?
Well, I don't know any of them, but I like the incumbents. I was kind of
Yeah, I don't know any
liking
of
James Hamlin just because this is an insurance type board, and he had 42 years of experience being an insurance agent, so I was thinking this life experience might be valuable.
Right, and I would, and it was a gradation for me.
Yeah.
I would be, I mean, there's not much of a difference there between the 2.
Yeah.
But so I'm open to that debate. The board, and that'd be great.
Yeah, and I'm not going to be much. I know Bob and Sandy both very well, and they've been serving on the board. They make the meetings. They show up for all the meetings, and they do a great job. And their interaction between CSDA and SDRMA is excellent, and they attend all the CSDA events also. So they're really the only ones that I have any basis of reality on. I know that the other 3 all have good attributes, and I think that Director Couch makes a good point about Mr. Hamlin's experience as an insurance person for quite some time, and he's also from almost as far north as you can get in California. So. If he's willing to drive from Bernie to Sacramento to make those meetings, good for him.
And I'm happy, so I'm happy to go that direction 2 days or whatever.
I don't know.
I'm happy to go that direction too.
Another option would be to vote for the 2 that we had unanimous approval for and leave the 3rd open, or I'm open to.
I didn't make a motion, I just took a viewpoint, so let's just figure out who.
So Dennis, do you know this Patrick O'Rourke guy? I mean,
I know Patrick well.
I was just thinking he's local. I don't know
Well,
that
yeah.
well.
Patrick's a very, very confident cat. I would give the nod to Hamlin over Patrick, but that'd be close too. So, anyway, I'll go along with the board's pleasure on myself.
it all right if I open it to public and then we can bring it back? Any public comment on this item? Okay, bring it back to the board.
I make a motion that we choose the two that we were unanimous on, which was Bob Swain and Sandy Siebert Raffleson.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Well, that's, yeah.
All right.
We can pick three.
Oh, well, I didn't want to pick a third. I just know we
Well,
agreed on that one.
Okay, then you want to do
Well,
do
okay.
that, then do the other, that's fine, whatever.
Should we go with that James Hamlin? Because that seemed pretty unanimous too. Huh? And James Hamlin. How's that?
Go off, so.
Good job.
We have a second Mayo, Director Mayo.
Okay.
Have roll call vote?
Director Barsanti,
Yes.
Director Couch,
Yes.
Director Mayo,
Yes.
Vice President Burke.
Yes. Moving on to item E4, approving resolution 2019 for the statewide park development. And this is Leslie Frisbee on page 239.
This resolution is a requirement of the grant application that authorizes staff and the general manager to complete and sign the grant application for funding from the statewide park development and community revitalization program. The adoption of this resolution will not authorize the general manager to enter into or execute any type of long-term agreement for debt, just the authority to complete the application and fulfill the grant administration contract if funds are awarded. Staff recommends that the board review all pertinent information, allow public comment, and adopt Resolution 2019-16 authorizing the application for the statewide park development and community revitalization program funding for the Pearson Park expansion and renovation project.
Thank you.
Well, am I just remembering something funny, or was there a little picture of what you actually were proposing in here? I think there was, because I went through the whole binder.
It's in her director report on page 336.
And when I looked at, thank you, when I looked at that, I was wondering what that little thing off the activity center was. Is it just we don't know what we're going to do, so there's just, it's, or is it going to be attached, or is it not decided?
I'm not sure which part off the activity center. So the map and the aerial photo is older than the teen center, so we just blocked off a portion to know that that's where the teen center currently is, because otherwise it would just be a grassy space.
Thank you, that makes sense, yeah. I wonder if it's going to be a separate unit or what it was. Okay.
No, it's just what's already there.
Yeah, that's fine, thank you, I appreciate that. I was just curious.
Any other board question or comment?
Just Yahoo. Good luck. That's what we hope.
Thanks.
Any public comment? Seeing none. My comment falls into the Yahoo and good luck. I think this is really exciting, and I'm so glad that the state is offering these opportunities to not just develop new things, but the revitalization of existing structures is really great to see. This is a roll call vote, so I'll entertain a motion.
I will
I'll second it, David.
move the staff recommendation.
I'll second.
Director Barsanti,
Yes.
Director Couch,
Yes.
Director Mayo,
Yes.
Vice President Burke.
Yes. Moving on to item E5, which is the approval of 2019-2020 proposed budget and appropriations limit. This is on page 241 and is being presented by Colleen Trask. And this is another one that is quite lengthy with, attachments and all in there. But as I understand it, it's kind of two-parted, so.
Now I can read it. All right. Staff recommends that the board review, take public comment, choose the format of summary sheet that is most useful from an oversight perspective, and approve the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget, and approve resolution 2019-17 establishing the appropriations limit for the fiscal year 1920. So the finalized budget differs in some respects from the elements that were presented earlier to the board in previous months. It reflects some updated assumptions regarding revenue streams. In particular, the one major revenue stream that we changed was the one for the kids club, the work we're doing in concert with the Kimberville School District. The revenue assumption that we made did not even include the staff cost. And so after some discussion with Leslie and with Greg, we decided that that contract, we have to at least cover our costs. So we cannot run that contract at a loss. We cannot continue to do that. Parks cannot absorb it. So we adjusted the revenue assumption accordingly. That was probably the major one. Everything else is very minor. So we also updated some of the grants and capital projects, including parks, CIP projects, to include the item that you guys just passed, which I very much appreciate. Sorry. All right. The budget contains, I'll go through the different pieces of the budget in just a moment here. But I wanted to talk about the addition. At Director Corbett's request, a narrative-style summary page has been added to the budget, which reflects the same numbers as the normal budget summary page that's in numeric format, kind of graphical format that you guys have seen before. Two versions of that page have been included. Both start with the district's net position as stated in the audited basic financial statements for fiscal year 17-18. One summary is calculated using the best projection of actuals for the current fiscal year, and then added to that the projected budget results for the next fiscal year so that everyone can see the net impact that it has on the net position of the district for each fund and overall. The other one is calculated using the budget, starting with the audited financials, adding the budget for the previous year and the budget that we're requesting for approval. And I was going to request that a decision be made as to which format the director found most useful for budgetary oversight. Whichever pages are rejected will be removed from the finalized budget, and only the chosen pages will be posted on the website and published. So it's audited net position plus projected actuals plus budget, or it's audited net position plus current year budget plus next year's budget. So those are the two choices. And we're open to discussion and any questions that you guys have.
I want to thank Colleen. She's worked very hard on this budget. She's worked hard with John, quite a few meetings with him, and then she's also met me a couple times and gone over things, and she's worked real hard to make it be something John's happy with. And I really appreciate that because, he thinks more literally than number-wise. So it's hard. It was hard. It was a lot of work for her, and she did a really nice job. And I met with her Monday, and we kind of went over everything. And in my opinion, I think, between those two things, the actual plus the 1 month projected makes more sense for your budget, what actually happened, than projecting the budget, which may or may not have been close. So of the two things, I think that was the best one. It made more sense to me. So, if you wanted a choice, I see you wanted a choice there. Is that something we have to vote on, or is it just something, okay?
We do, yes.
Yeah,
We have
okay.
to choose.
Okay.
And so we're choosing between page 251 and 253, as well as the numerical side is 252, 254. So one set is the A side, and the A, we're choosing A versus B, right? And the A is the audited financials.
B
Right,
is
that's
audit plus budget plus budget, and
Plus
B
budget.
is audit plus actuals plus budget.
Correct.
So B is the actual?
Yes.
Colleen, would you give us some feedback on Director Bersani's comments? How does that, her comments jive with you?
I have always done I've always used the projected actuals, but in my discussions, so it's always been previous year's audit plus projected actual figures for the current year plus the budget for the next year. But in my discussions with Director Corbett, he indicated multiple times that he wanted it to say to be audited plus budget. So I did one of those as well. But I wasn't sure which one would be more useful to you guys. That just seems to be more useful to him.
So,
So I think at this time, with what we know now, if we go with the audited for 18-19, the budget for 19-20, and the budgeted numbers for 2021 or 19-20, I'm sorry, that we know enough now that we're almost through the full fiscal year that those numbers aren't really representative. The budget numbers from last fiscal year were that crystal ball that we did a year ago in this month. We know much more. We have much more information at hand right now, and we're only projecting a couple of months. And I find that if we use the budgeted, the audited financials for 18-19, the projections to year to date, and the budget for 2021, we'll have a much more solid idea of what. So that when we get to this point next year, and the board wants explanation about why our projections for our net gains and what our net change in position is going to be, we'll have a much better potential of hitting that number using the projected actuals up to year to date.
So given that, what you said, and the three of you come up with what's the right thing then?
I think so. Didn't you like that better?
I prefer the B option.
Okay.
It just makes more sense.
All right.
Yeah, I think the three of us are in agreement that we should use the B option.
Okay, thank you.
It's just a departure from what Director Corbett had requested.
And Colleen is really awesome at estimating. She was showing me how she figures it out. She's really good at that. So, those are going to be close too. It's just a couple months. So, yeah. No, you are. It was really good.
That's great to have that collaboration going on. And so, as I understand it, Director Corbett was requesting the verbiage to go along with the numbers. So, as I understand it, he may be preferring A, but at least the verbiage side is going to go forward no matter which decision. So,
Yes, the representation that he requested is there. It's just the way that we came to the final numbers is a departure from what he requested.
The only thing that's going to be changed is this part right here.
right.
Yeah. So that's the only thing.
David, if you were, this is what
Yeah, that part down-
Director
down there.
Barsanti was saying.
Yeah, that'll be a
This
little-
section
yeah.
would change a little, as you see, it amounts to, a 300,000. About,
I think the verbiage is the same. I think it is.
yeah, it also has
I
that.
tried to keep the verbiage as close to as
Keep it
identical as possible.
Yeah, and then I'm real happy with this. I think this is really good to have the audited amount because I can follow it back. I can, from that and yeah, I think that's really good.
So this is an addition
Yeah,
to
this
the
right here,
previous-
right? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we should have said that. This right here is, yeah, that's the addition. That matches the last year's audit numbers. That Colleen did. It was wonderful to see. When I came in, she had this all done and then figured it out. It was great.
I think I'll open it for public comment. Seeing none, bring it back to the board and entertain a motion. And just remind us that this is a complex one. And when I spoke with Greg about running the meeting, just to be clear, he had asked that I check in with the board secretary so that there's clarity. So I didn't mean earlier to make it seem like I was feeding it.
No, that's okay. I didn't take it personally. I just was trying to
Be
make
considerate.
everybody happy.
Vice President Burke,
Yes.
this particular action is just for the A, the option, then I will walk you guys all through the budget, and you can act on the budget itself and the appropriations limit resolution.
Okay.
I think that would be a little easier. That would
Okay.
not, yeah, it's only too many numbers, right?
Thank you for that clarification.
Well, I make a motion, so I guess it'll have to be this, that we accept the new page, let's see.
If you want, Michelle, you might be able to find it here under recommendation number 1.
Right at the beginning of
Okay, oh, right there too, okay. Is it the first one? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I make a motion that we accept summary sheet, what is it, 10B? Okay. Whew. Is that good, Emily?
And roll call?
Director Barsanti?
Yes.
Director Couch?
Yes.
Director Mayo?
Yes.
Vice President Burke?
Yes. And now we'll hear on the,
And now we can actually walk through the budget.
great.
This is the fun part. So, okay, we'll see how much of this can actually fit on stage.
If you reduce the down to 100, you'll get more than the page on it. Maybe 75. There you go.
I don't know how much that's going to help. Everyone's going to have to squint for the numbers anyway. Okay, so the first part of the budget, of course, is the introduction of the budget guide. It gives you kind of verbally, it's a sort of verbal table of contents. The budget always starts with a description of the community and a description of the Kimberville Community Services District. This is so that folks who are not familiar with us and have no idea who we are have some idea before they start looking at the numbers. We have included, we also include the mission statement and the strategic plan matrix. This page will actually change next year because the board has gone through the strategic planning process and you guys have chosen a slightly different format for the strategic plan. So, but for now, we're still working on the one that the board approved in January. Our organizational chart with things familiar to all.
Can I make a point at this time?
Yes.
So just for the board's information, as part of the budget, when you're you're approving the budget, you're basically approving our staffing plan for the next fiscal year by approving the organizational chart here. So that's how it's the requirement of the board approve our staffing plan, and this is the piece of the puzzle that approves our staffing plan. It's the exact same. There are no changes to the staffing plan from last year.
Actually, there were.
Oh, was it?
Well, not in terms of number, but in terms of vacancies.
Yeah.
Last year, we didn't have Mr. Johnson on in the utility worker 1 and 2 category. His line said vacant, one
Right.
position. So when we budget for a vacant position, that shows up here.
Yeah, but the position was budgeted.
It's
just
budgeted, it's just we haven't hired someone yet, because you can't always guarantee hiring by the time you're ready to budget. So for instance, this section right here, maintenance workers for Parks Department, we have Eric Martin, Blake Stewart, 1 vacant position. Seasonal worker, vacant position, right? So it just means we haven't hired.
Actually,
We have, I don't think we usually don't name the seasonal ones.
no, actually, that should be, we need to make an amendment to this.
Okay.
What's Morgan's last name? Morgan. So, under maintenance worker 1 in the parks maintenance, that vacant one, strike that, and it should say Morgan Deards.
D-E-A-R-D-S.
Deards.
So the staffing plan is the same, but we just have named there instead of vacant 1. That's good to know. Actually, this is the first time we've had this is one of the first times we've had full staffing since I've been here.
Mm-hmm.
Actually. Which is a good thing. Okay. Moving right along.
Oh, that changes tomorrow.
It'll be changed before it's posted or published.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
No, because Emily's, it'll be vacant
that's
after
right.
tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll have to change.
We'll
the name.
approve it tonight while she's
Yes.
here.
Right, you want to prove it while she's here. Okay, so we have a calculation of full-time equivalents. This is the raw number of employees. This is the equivalent full-time people in terms of hours. And then the official table of contents, starting with Exhibit 1, and that's the summary. Those are the 2 summary pages that you chose. And then we start with actual budgets and graphs. So we'll move right along there. There's B. All right, so this is our verbal summary page. This is done in a written position, written form, and it compares net position for the current year to the net position of the last year's audit plus the current year's projected actual. And since we're fairly far along in the current fiscal year, that's a fairly accurate projection. For those who prefer numbers over letters, this is the summary page. It summarizes the budgets for every fund: water, wastewater, streetlights, parks, and Measure B, and it totals everything. The portion down at the bottom is what actually shows up on that summary page, just down here. So we have the fund balance as of July 1st, 2018. So this is the ending balance from our previous fiscal year. This is the audited financial statements. That's where we always start. And then we have the projected surplus or loss, and then the budget that we're proposing for the current fiscal year, and the net result from that. Okay, now we get right down to cases. We start with the water fund. In previous years, it's been requested that I show the budget for one year against the budget for the next year. And what I'd like to point out, at least on this page, are some very interesting things that look rather odd, but actually aren't if you know what you're looking at. First of all, there we go. This number right here for water sales, you'll notice that it is lower for projected fiscal 1920 than it was for when we projected this budget last year, when we came up with this budget last year. The water sales figure comes from our rate studies. And the figure for last year was the 5-year projection from the 2013 rate study. The figure for this year, for 1920, is the first year's projection from the 2018 rate study. So the rate study is much more recent, it's 5 years newer, and the projection is more accurate. So that's why it looks weird. I don't think we're actually going to lose 100,000 television water sales, but last year's number was not as accurate. Although, you know, it did come from the rate study, it was properly calculated, it's just old information. The other anomaly in this budget that I would like to point out is this line right here that says other expenses. Last year that budget was $258,000. This year that budget goes up to $439,000. That's a very large jump. The primary reason for that jump actually has to do with the other post-employment benefits. We are now, because of the requirements of GASB 75, we are now calculating and posting the OPEB liability expense for every year. And that is so we added that number in, it came into other expenses, and that's why that particular category took such a large balance. It's actually, the overall increase is actually less than the amount of the estimated OPEB expense. So other expenses has actually gone down, but when we add that one expense in, it's bigger. So. And
does everybody understand what that is? That's kind of an important thing for everyone to know what that is. Do you guys understand?
Will you go ahead
what it is? Okay.
Do you want to provide some
Yeah, that
background?
maybe in case somebody doesn't know, that's the extra money that the district has to pay for future pensions, future health care costs, when people retire. You see in the paper sometimes there'll be a headline that'll say, you know, a government owes $80 million or something. That's what they're talking about is this. Yeah, so it's good that ours is under control. Is kind of.
And so Colleen was saying there's been a change in how we post it.
Yes.
And where it goes in our budget.
There was an addition. It used to be that we just reported the pension, you know, that was the pension, the future pension. Now we also report the future, like healthcare is mostly what our district does.
OPEB means other post-employment benefits, and for this district, that is healthcare for retirees. The GASB 75, Government Accounting Standards Board Directive number 75, changed the way that OPEB, that other post-employment benefit, is calculated, and it also changed how we have to post that into our books. So now we have to show the full actuarially estimated liability. I hate showing estimated liabilities on my balance sheet, but GASB says I have to, so I do. And so not only do I have to show that estimated liability, I also have to show the estimated cost of servicing that liability. And that's what that extra approximately $205,000 of budget is for. So, yeah.
Thank you both for more information on that.
I hope that was
One
helpful.
district,
So we run a little graph underneath showing the proportions of a budget of various expenses from one year to the next, so you can see any large changes. And in this case, it's that other expenses, that red square or that red pie piece right here, gotten much larger. So, yeah. All right, sewer fund. Okay. So again, the sewer service charges came from two different rate studies, although in this case the difference was not nearly as large.
That's because the amount of time between, this is only a couple of years worth of rate studies.
Right. The previous rate study for sewer was what, 2014, 2015? Yeah. So that was a couple of years newer than that, and then in 2018 we did both of them together and got them in sync. So we have a new thing for that. Again, the other expenses shows that large increase. The bulk of that is the OPEB. The other post-employment benefits, actually the estimated cost. The other large jump is down here in depreciation expense because the new wastewater treatment plant is now online. And the estimate we weren't sure when that was going to be put fully into service, and so the budget for fiscal year 18-19, the depreciation estimate was low. And this year it's based on, the projected budget is based on an actual. So we're looking at a big increase, but it's a realistic increase.
So Colleen, for point of clarification related to the other expenses, so it's a requirement that $509,885 be booked, but at the end of the fiscal year that we're budgeting for right now, that won't be reflected in the actual expenses. Because that money won't be. It's not like that money's going to be coming out of our reserves and going somewhere. So basically, at the end of this fiscal year that we're budgeting for right now, it'll be reflected. The number, that $850,000 number, will be higher, or it potentially could be correct.
I'm not sure which number you're heading.
Okay, so you have other.
Yes, okay. The reason for the jump is that the budget last year, when we were doing the budget last year, we didn't have GASB Directive 45 or 75, so we didn't include this estimated cost. This one we added for the projected budget year, we've added over $200,000 in estimated costs for actual service liability related to other post-employment benefits. So a little more than about half of that $500,000, or a little less than half of it, is OPEB. And that's the big difference there. Otherwise, it would have only gone up a tiny bit at...
But for my clarification is that money's not like we're not going to write a check and that money's going to be gone out of reserves at the end of the year.
No, not right now.
Right. But we do.
I will post that to the board eventually, but not today.
Right, yeah. So we do. So at this point in time, we're posting that as a liability, but and we do owe it, but nobody's collecting. Nobody's got their hand out right now. So at some point in the future, we'll be asking the board to start booking that money or banking that money, saving that money into an account, so that we're doing the responsible thing related to that liability. Up until this point, the amount of money that we were paying into it was going out. We were actually paying out on that. Now, to be responsible, we'll actually be saving that money into another account, but we'll still be accruing reserves. It's just that those reserves will be spoken for. But we've not come to the board and asked the board to do that yet.
We'll be creating, and probably, I'll be requesting that the board invest in a IRS Section 115 account, which actually legally lowers the liability. So it's, and I know I brought that item to the board before just as an information item. I will bring it back. So we'll get to go over this in far more gory detail some other time.
So what you're talking about is the $7 million liability on the audit, just to be
Yes.
clear. Okay, so it is a kind of an important thing.
It is, but it's also like suggesting that you have, when you go to buy a house and get a mortgage, you're not expected to have 100% of that mortgage when you buy the house.
Yeah, that's
You actually can
That's
pay it
true.
out in cash flow.
Yeah, I understand that. And the way you explained it to me is you pay as you go the health care for retired folks, right?
Yes, yes.
Get
So
all the
and that will
cash.
continue. That will absolutely continue. We've always met our obligations, and we've always reported as legally required. It's just the legal reporting requirements are no different.
And you also said there's a trust that you're putting, that you work
We will
with.
be coming to the board to request authorization. We have funds in CalTrust that are set aside for OPEB, but it's not a Section 115 authorized trust. So we will
Yeah, this
initially come-
is fairly new, that's why there's, it's fairly new.
Yeah.
People are just,
And it happened after we did the rate study too, so we didn't know to be able to add that as a liability in the rate study, which would have changed significantly what our rates would have looked like if we would have been actually collecting this money to be able to fill that. So there is a potential that we're underperforming related to the amount of money that we're hoping to be able to put away in reserves. It's in no way endangering us of not being able to balance our budget, but we're not putting away reserves at the same rate that we thought we were when we proposed the budget to the board last time, because we have to now represent this liability on the expense side of the budget. And so that'll be one of the things that the board will have the opportunity to be able to do. How do you want to fund this? Do you want to fund it at that liability? Do you want to partially fund it? We do pay the money out every year related to whatever it costs to take care of insurance for the retired annuitants. That money, we are paying that money, so it's not like we're not paying our debts, but this would be funding the projected that we're going to have in years to come, and not paying it off as we accrue.
Right, and the thing with the actuarial, because it's an estimate, it's an actuarial estimate, it's going to change every year.
Every year, yeah.
Because, people get hired to the district, people retire from the district, people leave the district for other employment. So the mix of people, which is what drives an actuarial projection, changes constantly.
Every year you'll have it different.
And it'll end up being a little different all the time.
Yes.
And as more people go off of their regular insurance and they go on to Medicare Part B, that liability changes it. As people pass away, that number changes. So it's going to change. It's not. Don't count on it being $200,000 every year. I can say that.
Okay, let's move on to some less complicated and more interesting news. Streetlights. So the current year, our current fiscal year is the first year since I've been here that we have been, we've paid down all the reserves that we used to change to LED streetlights. That big capital project that happened like the second year I was here. It cost quite a bit, and we got a no-interest loan from PG&E to get the work done. But we did still have to dip into reserves pretty significantly. And this is the first year, we're still paying on the loan, we have a little bit left to pay on it. But this is the first year we are already showing a solid surplus, which we will use to replace photocells, replace poles, and Eventually, we will have to replace the LED fixtures themselves. So hopefully, as we set aside that surplus, or as we allow that surplus to build, we will have enough for those capital projects without raising rates and without putting the district further in debt. So that always makes me happy.
Yes, that's great news. It's always good to celebrate when you're in the black.
Oops. Okay. Parks. Here we go. So our parks budget, again, best estimate, we're still showing a significant drop in the program fees, and that is almost completely related to the one program. And that's even with the modified assumption that I made that the program's revenue will cover the actual cost of running it. We show a very slight increase in property taxes, which is expected. Our open space fees have dropped a little bit because one of the open space, the Camino Way open space was closed this past year. I think it was closed off, they voted to not have the open space there last May or something, so we've estimated that slightly lower. But we are showing a small surplus for parks, which we will hopefully be able to use for for capital projects that aren't grant funded. And I'm really hoping that most of our capital projects will be grant funded.
That you're saying that surplus,
If that surplus,
which line?
surplus excess or deficit is the last line here, right above the graphs.
Oh, yeah, you can jump down there. Okay, I was going.
You can jump down.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a modest. It's a modest surplus, and then the parks has the maintenance plan in place now. We'll need to that way we can start looking more at any maintenance project or capital project that is not going to be grant funded, which is better than the draft budget I brought to you earlier.
Yes.
So I'm happy about that too. All right, and then Measure B. Again, our Measure Bs tend to run very, very close to break even, and the actuals always support that. The Measure B is legally restricted to the maintenance and/or acquisition of parks and capital projects for recreation in this community. That's what the voters authorized when they passed that measure, that assessment, and that is exactly what we spend it on. So we're very, very careful to make sure that all expenditures, it covers its own costs, which are fairly minimal administratively, but the vast bulk of the is spent exactly as requested. So capital, the debt service has to do with the teen center. We went into debt to build the teen center, and so the debt payment shows up there, but everything else is strictly maintenance or capital projects. Okay. Now, here comes the history. Each of these, each fund has its own, we track history, actual costs of history, and the estimated actuals for the current fiscal year. Going back, I try and get it to 10 years plus budget. We actually have this going back like a couple decades, which is very cool. So if you want to see where things have gone, this period right here in the for the waterfront was we were literally not collecting enough rates to even cover minimal costs. We dug pretty deeply into the reserves just to operate at that point, and then we got that corrected, and we started. We changed the rates enough to cover our loan payments, our capital projects, and the required reserves that we have to have. water, wastewater. There we go. The jump in operating expenses is somewhat expected and anticipated because the wastewater of the new treatment plant takes more energy. Well, not as high the PG&E cost as we originally thought, but it still takes more people and more energy and more cost. It's a greater cost to run, but it meets the standards that the state was set. So we can't fudge on that. Okay, and this is the street lights. The spike that you see is the LED project when we went ahead and replaced all the lights.
Can we go back to the wastewater? Just wanted to inquire, if operating, so we could expect to see the operating expenses level out looking into the future because it had to jump up to get started, and then it would level out. And then we're planning a solar project.
Correct, which most likely we'll still see that line will still probably, because we'll have to finance half of the solar project and half of the pump. So we'll be financing. These grants are only covering half of the cost, so there'll be loan payment. I would expect that the expense line will definitely it won't level out completely, but its incline will
It'll flatten.
It'll flatten out substantially and probably increase it 3 to 4% a year.
Yeah, there's no way that electric bills are going to stay stable for anybody.
No.
So we're doing the best we can, trying and covering, the best case scenario, but electric bills are going to continue to increase. This way for everybody.
Well, and that's one of the major reasons for doing the solar project is to keep that, is to have some control over that cost, because otherwise we have no control over it. But yeah, I expect that jump to actually flatten in the next year or two. We'll be able to see that. Okay, there we go. And there's parks. This is parks and Measure B. And again, the large spike is the teen center construction. The smaller blue spike in revenue is the loan for the teen center construction. So we got the loan funded in advance of actual construction, and the actual construction costs more than the amount that we're borrowing, which we brought to the board and had approved. So now, and we'll be paying on that loan for 15 of the 18 years left on the Measure B assessment. So the last 3 years, that loan amount will be used to backfill the dent that building a teen center cost us. So hopefully we'll be able to move out of a negative net position and into a positive net position. But that's not going to happen until the very end of the assessment period where the loan has been paid off. And then these should look fairly familiar. They are the capital improvement project budgets that we brought to the board. Previously, they've been updated and modified in the intervening months, not surprised. And the detail has been compressed, but the narrative still outlining all the different projects that were discussed and brought to the board in the draft version. So we have the enterprise funds, which is water and wastewater. There we go. And then we have parks, capital improvement. It's all in thousands, those single digits. And And there's our narratives for those. So those should, again, be fairly familiar. And then the last few pages are the strategic plan matrix. Again, these follow the sections that were laid out in that page right before the table of contents. So you'll see water, wastewater, all the way down numbered. This is what the board approved in January. This is what we're running on this year. Next year, this will look different because the board approved a different strategic plan format.
But the staff will continue to use the matrix for tracking projects. So that the matrix won't come to the board, but it'll definitely be still used as a planning document for us related to tracking our projects.
So to clarify, the board won't be reviewing the matrix next year? You're going to drop it from
not as part of the strategic plan, but it still will be. We can still maintain it as part of the budget.
Okay.
But we haven't decided that yet.
Because strategic planning is not done.
It's not going to be it will not be the strategic plan anymore. The matrix will no longer, it'll be a project tracking device for staff that won't be part of the strategic plan.
Okay. All right, the very last bit of the budget is, this has to do with the resolution, and that has to do with the appropriations limit calculation. This is a calculation required by the state of California, where we look at the ad valorem property tax, and we do a calculation based on population growth and value, increase in property value, to come up with how much of the current year appropriation limit that we're technically not supposed to spend more than the current appropriation limit in the categories that the state requires. And all of the pages are in there if you want to wade through the calculations. I'd be happy to explain it, but I figured nobody but the state controller's office really cares about this. Especially since we are always way under the limit. We do not spend anywhere near, we do not receive from the county, nor do we spend anywhere near our actual appropriations limit. So, but we still have to have the calculation, and we still have to pass the resolution that says, yes, we know what that is, and we're not going to spend over it. So I'm just letting you know, we're 44% underneath the limit, so we're good. Thank you.
Incorporated as always, we don't have to worry about it.
I just have a comment. What I find interesting is that in a couple of these papers, I find that the district is going to decrease a little in folks.
Well, that's the thing. We have to use the figures for the Humboldt County unincorporated area,
Oh,
not the district boundaries.
Specifically for
Right, because we have to use the report that's generated by the state that tracks population increase and decrease in municipalities, but they don't track unincorporated communities like ours
separately.
We're just lumped together in a total of all of the unincorporated Humboldt. So
That's just interesting, isn't it?
it's very interesting, and it always gives me kind of a chuckle. It's like, no, wait, as far as I know, McKinleyville's getting bigger, but we don't really know it. And the state doesn't know that because they glom us in with everybody else. So, yeah. It's a little fun. Anyway, so that is the whole shooting match.
Colleen, could we go back to page 248, please?
Yes, we can. Oh, yes. Okay.
We need to make another minor modification to the org chart. We need to swap Michael Buck and Seth Manel. Is that correct, James?
Yes. Okay. So Seth would be up in.
Seth would be utility worker, his position is utility worker 1,
Okay.
and Michael Buck is maintenance worker 1.
I must have misread that when I was going through the payroll records. My apologies to both of them and to you. Okay, I will make that change before we close.
Yeah. And if the board could recognize those modifications in the motion, we'd appreciate that.
Are we ready for a motion?
We are ready for a motion.
So I move to accept the report with the modifications.
I'll second it.
That satisfies your needs? Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Director Barsanti?
Yes.
Director Couch?
Oh, sorry, one moment, thank you. Director Mayo, does the public wish to comment on this item? Seeing none, bring it back and continue where we left off. We have a first motion and a second.
Director Barsanti?
Yes.
Director Couch?
Yes.
Director Mayo?
Yes.
Vice President Burke?
Yes. Thank you, Director Mayo. All right, and thank you for your presentation.
Thank you very much for your patient attention. I know this is gory detail and sometimes an awful grind, but I really appreciate you guys in paying attention, asking questions, and being involved. It helps a lot.
And I just want to appreciate Director Barsanti and seeing the the back and forth, the relationship that's developed, and thank you for your attention to this.
Yeah, thanks a lot. This is really one of the more important things we do. People don't realize that,
It really is.
And that's probably the most important thing that you do every year. Leslie, thank you very much for your interest in this. And one thing, so we still have to approve the resolution for the appropriations.
Okay.
So we need,
So we
the
need
final
a-
board action is to approve the resolution for the appropriations limit.
We have a motion to approve the resolution, so it's written in the,
Yeah, the motion outlines to approve resolution 2019-17 establishing the appropriations limit for fiscal year 1920.
I will move that we approve resolution 2019-7 establishing appropriations for fiscal year 2019/20.
I will second it.
thank you. Roll call?
Director Barsanti?
Yes.
Director Couch?
Yes.
Director Mayo?
Yes.
Vice President Burke?
Yes. Thank you for catching that, General Manager, and again, thank you to all the staff for doing such a great job in preparing the budget and having us prepared by getting it to us and spoon feeding it to us in bits so that we're ready for this when it comes to us. So we're moving on to item E6, which is the annual board self-evaluation being presented by Emily Upfalter, page 289.
At the March 2016 board meeting, a modification to the Board of Directors Policy Manual adding Part 11, Annual Board Self-Evaluation, was approved. The policy provides the directors with the tool to assess its own performance as a board in order to help identify strengths and areas in which it may improve function. At the November 2017 board meeting, modifications to the board self-evaluation worksheet were approved. Modifications to the worksheet included a relabeled rating scale, a comment section for each question, and the addition of a question. At tonight's meeting, the evaluation worksheets have been distributed in an unsealed envelope marked confidential to each of the directors for completion. Once completed, worksheets must be returned to the board secretary for compilation in the same envelopes sealed on or before July 12th. The evaluation topic will be included on the agenda at the August 7th, 2019 meeting for review, discussion, and any appropriate action. Staff recommends that the board review, discuss, and take public comment regarding the annual board self-evaluation.
Any comment or question? All right, then we will get these back to the board secretary on or before July 12th. That was an information item. Moving on to E7, approving contract amendment for hazard mitigation generator being presented by Greg Orsini on page 294.
Thank you for mentioning the page number so that I didn't have to. So, this is the never-ending ongoing saga of the generator replacement program that was scheduled to be, James, 2 weeks?
4 weeks now.
The contract was for it to be less than 90 days, and here we are, probably, I don't know, 6 months into the project. So anyway, to get back to the because of the extended time in the contract, and also some assumptions that were made by our consultant related to the bid process. If you look at the fiscal analysis, there are 2 tables there. The original effort, which is the top table, which was a budget that was approved by the board I believe it was at the February board meeting, and that was for $81,200. And you allowed as a contingency so that the final amount budget amendment was for $89,320. Well, if you go through the tasks, task 1 remained the same, task 2 remained the same, task 3 remained the same, but where we had an issue was task 4, which was the bid assistance, because there were they basically. I keep getting louder. So anyway, because
Looking away, and then you're coming back.
okay. So anyway, you can see the bid assistance. So when they proposed the project for us, they neglected that there would be two phases of bid assistance. The first phase of bid assistance was related to the purchase of the generators, because we pre-purchased the generators. So we had bid packets from different generator suppliers, and then we had the actual bid assistance for the actual construction. So you can see that number almost doubled because of having to review 2 sets of bid packets. And then if you look at the construction management cost, because of the time overruns related to issues that were beyond the contractor's control, mainly related to the supplier trashing one of the switch gears, loading it on the truck. That number went up substantially from $18,060 to $41,500. Yeah, and then so.
Can you cover that?
No, I'm not. So, in essence, changing the project from $81,200 to $110,997. It's just one of those things. The board's probably fairly used to us when we have change orders and us coming in very close to budget on these projects, and things like these do happen. So this item is to approve a budget modification and approve a contract amendment related to our services from GHD. So staff recommends that the board review the information provided, take public comment, and authorize the general manager to execute the budget amendment request for hazard mitigation generator grant assistance, which is attachment 1. I'll take questions at this point.
So this is just GHD, no other,
Yes, this is just the effort that GHD did related to bid assistance and construction management.
And General Manager, I see that we have 2 items here, E7 and E8. Can you, at a high level, describe the relationship between those items?
So E7 is the increase in effort that the GHD did related to the project, and E8, which we'll cover in just a minute, is the request to ask the Cal OES and FEMA to increase our funding agreement by this amount, and then some miscellaneous amounts that were part of the increases that were change orders in the actual contract for construction.
Thank you.
So the districts, as you can see, if you look at fiscal analysis underneath the table that shows the modified effort for professional services agreement, it says, since the hazard mitigation grant is a 25% match for MCSD, our total out of pocket will be $27,750 for the increase in effort from GHD. It is, it's nothing to sneeze at, but it's still the vast majority, 75% of this increase will be covered, as well as 75% of the total cost of this $110,000 is going to be covered through the grant.
Is there any need to talk about the damage and you reimburse for it, or is that just a visible?
I personally don't think it's worth the effort at this point in time, because I don't really know that we can hold the supplier responsible.
Yeah, that's fine. Whatever.
Any other questions?
does this happen real often? Is it
No, this project, we've had numerous issues with the suppliers that day generator used. There was also an issue with the baffles that went over where the radiator protrudes through the penetration for where the radiator gets its cooling air in the building. There was a set of baffles that were manufactured wrong. They were basically they were spec'd by the design consultant. They were reviewed by the construction team, and then they were sent to the manufacturer to be manufactured. And when the specifications came back, when the details came back for them, they were correct. And when they were manufactured, they were manufactured wrong. They were upside down. So that along with them just
Wasn't change in the transfer switch.
there were multiple things going on.
Upside down.
I got involved and lost one.
Except for we thought about running the baffles upside down, but when it rained, it would have filled the building up with water, so we decided not to do that. So. It's just one of those. It's one of those things. Like I said, as a percentage of the project, it's significant, the increase. And we're usually fare much better when it comes to change orders in our projects than this.
Any more questions or comments from the board right now? And then I'll open it for public comment. Seeing none, I'll bring it back and entertain a motion.
Nope, not good. I will Move that we authorize the general manager to execute the budget amendment request for hazard mitigation generator grant project assistance.
Second.
Who meets your needs? Okay, roll call, please.
Director Barsanti,
Yes.
Director Couch,
Yes.
Director Mayo,
Yes.
Vice President Burke.
Yes. Moving to item E8, which is being also presented by Greg Orsini, as you mentioned. This is a related.
Since we discussed this pretty much already, right? Can I just make a motion that we approve the budget amendment for hazard mitigation generator replacement funding agreement?
Second, subject to public comment.
I'll just ask, is that sufficient? Because there's a long recommendation.
Yeah, I would propose that that the motion mirror the staff recommendation verbatim.
So if you want to just add as per staff recommendation.
As per staff recommendation.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Director Barsanti,
Yes.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
twice in one meeting.
That's okay.
Thank you.
That's right.
I'd like to open this item up for public comment. Seeing none, we'll bring it back. And we will continue with the roll call. Apologies.
Director Barsanti,
Yes.
Director Couch,
Yes.
Director Mayo,
Yes.
Vice President Burke.
Yes. On to our last continuing new business item, item E9, page 322, also presented by Greg Orsini, is a resolution in support of a resolution relative to Special Districts Week.
Thank you. For Director Burke, Director Mayo, and General Manager Orsini, this was one of the items that we lobbied for when we went to legislative days. This is a assembly concurrent resolution. So this is a resolution that will be heard on the floor of the assembly to recognize that September 22nd will be proclaimed as, September 22nd through September 28th will be recognized as Special Districts Week in the state of California. And basically what our resolution does is staff recommends that the board review the information provided, discuss, take public comment, and approve a resolution 2019-19, which is attachment 1, supporting Assembly concurrent resolution number 89 relative to Special Districts Week.
Subject to public comment, I move to approve attachment 1 and attachment 2 for staff.
Any other board comment? Open this item up for public comment. As we have a motion, I'll entertain a second.
I second it.
Great, could I have a roll call vote?
Director Barsanti,
Yes.
Director Couch,
Yes.
Director Mayo, Vice President Burke.
Yes. And I think this week would give us a great opportunity to message to our community about what special districts do. And I wonder if we might even want to collaborate with other special districts in the region and sort of say, hey, look at all the special districts you have helping meet your needs in our communities. So do you think that's primarily the purpose of the resolution, is to create awareness for the services that special districts provide? Is that right?
Mm-hmm. So would the boards wish that we advertise on our website, or would you rather that we wait until September when they recognize Special Districts Week, because that will be Special Districts Week. So we can put it in the calendar and make sure that we
Look at everybody's here, that the board would collaborate on writing a My Word column to go in the Times Standard, explaining what this process here was and what the process public. I think it's always good. We do that a lot of ways, but it's always good to do that. One of the things that we want to look into that subject to more comments and how effective special districts have been in again curtailing the horrible tax on water. We've successfully negotiated with the governor's staff and with the budget, the state budget committees to support, is it AB or SB 200? AB or SB 200, which will provide $150 million a year from the general fund on an ongoing basis, added to our voluntary nitrate funds from California farmers, so that's a really significant success, considering how strong the governor and many other agencies in the state wanted the tax no matter what.
So to be clear, are you proposing that you're going to write a My Word column?
Well, no, I thought, well, I'm happy to contribute, but I thought it should be something from the entire board and have everybody from the board kind of collaborate on it and be a statement of an action statement from us as a board. I think would be
I would support that idea. I think I might change it a little bit to highlight the role that special districts play, and maybe highlight also the ability, the collective sort of lobbying power of being a part of the Special Districts Association.
I don't have a fix, it's just, I think that's.
Would you like that brought back to the board as an agenda item?
We can do that in August maybe, because that's a good plan.
I think it'd be much better served to actually have that agendized.
Yeah.
Just for the
That's why
discussion.
it'll give us time to take some notes and different things that come. Of course, I'm all about battling this water tax for the last 3 years.
Right.
So that's a big issue for me.
Well, great idea. Thank you.
So anyway, everybody else might have a few other things to. Okay.
Okay, so we are now into item F, which are the active committee reports, starting with the Recreation Advisory Committee. Director Couch?
Well, we have an item on that already, and then if you read Leslie Frisbee's excellent report, I don't have anything to add to that. We're going to get out of here early.
Any questions or comments?
You haven't heard me stutter through mine.
The next is Area Fund, and we did not meet. The next is the Redwood Region Economic Development Commission. Director Mayo?
So REDEC didn't have an official board meeting, but we did have a executive committee, loan committee meeting, which I can't talk about. It's all proprietary. But we had that meeting. But I did want to say that this is a project of REDEC, among others, but a major REDEC project. Tomorrow night at 7:30 at the California Redwood Coast Humboldt County Airport, ACB. There's a mouthful for you. We're going to have the open house kickoff for the direct flight to Denver. And so that's a cool deal, and everybody in the community is invited. And if you could come, I think it'd be good. I hear there'll be really good either jazz or bluegrass music, and some very tasty homemade treats to eat. If the airplane don't tickle your fancy, that might.
When is that again?
At the airport.
Tomorrow night?
It's at the California Redwood Humboldt County Airport, ACV.
7:30.
Tomorrow night at 7:30. And that's the little airport that's in McKinleyville, apparently.
Thank you. On to McKinleyville Senior Center.
Well, we've had a blast again this month. My husband and I have, I've attended both meetings, and we have volunteered probably 4 or 5 days total. And we were, my husband pretty much ran the rummage sale. He was, and made lots of money. And there's just wonderful people there. We're really enjoying. He's semi-retired, so he's taking a writing class there too for his memoirs. So. We're really enjoying it. We're really enjoying getting to know all the people at the senior center and helping them raise money and make a connection with business folks. That's what we're working on too. So that's been great.
That's great.
You're talking about your husband?
Huh?
You're talking about your husband?
Yeah.
He's got a memory.
He's writing his memoirs.
No, I said he has a memory.
I'm
kidding.
Oh, you're so funny. Okay. And then you heard about the audit too. That Colleen and I, we've had lots of fun working together on things. So thank you, Colleen. I've really enjoyed learning about the district.
I appreciate your effort and the time you put into going through it and understanding it.
I appreciate it a lot. Thank you. I appreciate you too.
Great. Employee negotiations.
Nothing to report. Probably won't have anything to report for a couple of years.
And water task force and ad hoc, no drugs and toxics down the drain, nothing to report.
Yeah, didn't we do a doodle poll on, and then we have never met, have we?
Yeah, doodle poll showed that there was not sufficient interest.
Oh,
and so the meeting was not held for the water task force. The McKinleyville Municipal Advisory Committee met, and we had 3 agenda items. The first was a review of the Brown Act and procedures. It's a great introduction, a lot of good question and answer from the committee. The second item was a request from Supervisor Madrone to produce a letter in supporting the same that the district approved to support the tracking of expenditures in the boundaries of the services district. And the third item was a request from the MCMAC to support a letter to the county to seek funding for beautification of the entrances and exits to McKinleyville. And there was a point of clarification to make sure that that request included safety, so that we could pair up safety and beautification, which makes sense along the entrances and exits to our community. So there is a letter that it was an action taken to send a letter to the county requesting funds for that effort. And at the same time, there's going to be a couple of items coming back to the MCMAC to form ad hoc committees. One ad hoc committee will be to look at the bylaws and make recommendations to the committee and then to the board to update the bylaws if necessary. And the second would be to consider forming an ad hoc committee so that committee members and the public could get together to talk more about this idea of beautification and safety on the routes in and out and through McKinleyville. So we can look forward to those.
What kind of ad hoc committee format are you talking about, or have you come up with some concept yet?
My understanding is there would be less than a quorum of participation from the MCMAC. So that would be probably three members. Well, no, because it's so part of
There's
our.
there's 8, so as long as it's less than,
Less than
a
as long as it's less than 5.
Oh, okay, so it would be a standing gig. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
And then now, what will be the other makeup?
expecting that it will be open to community members and other agencies, county and or NGOs that are interested in also helping support the efforts.
Do you have any kind of, what's the format?
No format.
3 and
Oh, yeah.
7.
We don't have,
format.
there's nothing set up yet.
All right. And then one thing, were you finished with that, with the report on that?
Yeah, unless General Manager has any more to add?
No, that was fairly comprehensive.
I wanted to throw into the mix to both of you, because I don't know whether I'm being around or not all the time to do that, but significant feedback from lots of people on this incorporation study stuff, that people who are not within your sewer area are not interested in whatever this might turn out to be, you know. Just because you have water, if you're not sewer and water, it's a totally different type of environment. And so just to throw that into the mix for discussion, that and who knows, I mean, if for some reason this gets to that point of something significant, not buy-in, but buy-out for people who aren't sewered, is what I'm hearing.
I think the key point there is that whatever happens, we will have more information, but the public will have the ability to digest the information and vote on any action that would come out of it. Thank you for reporting back to us in the community about that, Dennis. And on to Cornerstone Committee.
Nothing to report?
Groundwater sustainability did not meet, nothing to report, and the LAFCO.
LAFCO? Getting us started on track. So, LAFCO had two big things. Was Blue Lake talked about their sphere of influence, and the county would like to reduce their sphere of influence, and Blue Lake does not want their sphere of influence reduced. So there's disagreement there. And then LAFCO produced, I'm going to bring this to you guys to share with the board, but it's like a 2-page document of how to go about incorporation, because they would be the people that would be, in charge of it. So they printed out this thing, and I want to share it with the board. Whether you're interested or not, it's just a good piece of information. And it's kind of like there's basically 2 tracks. So you could either have a citizens group that collect signatures and try to get it going that way, or we as an agency could vote for it. So Mr. Redrone was telling me, well, you guys should just vote for this. I said, well, I have this problem with that. Even though I favor it, it's never been on a goal, or it's never,
Could you repeat that statement to me?
We could vote.
Mr. Madrone said what? He thought you could just vote for it.
Well,
I thought he was simply looking for information.
Well,
That's interesting.
the incorporation, when we do the process, we as the impacted agency could vote to initiate the incorporation process as a board. And I'm kind of in favor of incorporation, but I'm not really in favor of us voting for it, because it's never been, we've never put it as a goal or discussed it. And I was saying, Mr. McGurran, that if we wanted to do that, it might take 4 or 5 years. So, because...
So, in my opinion, if there's so many people in McKinleyville that want incorporation, they should have no problem collecting $2,500.
Well, that's the way I figure. I mean, if people want to do it, then we should form a citizens committee, and that would be the right process to do it, because it's a democratic thing. But if we were in some straits where we thought we needed to become a city rather than a service district, we could vote as a board to initiate the process. But I don't.
Are you planning to bring this to the board in an agenda item, or just as?
Well, I was just going to say the information
report?
stuff. I mean, I was just telling Mr. Madrone that, we've never put that in a goal. It's never been something that we've discussed. So, I don't think we're going to ever vote for it, because.
So I'll get this guy's card to you. When we were down at with our deal,
Ledge days?
Ledge Days, the number one attorney in California that does those litigations
Right.
had a what a break session.
A breakout
A
session.
breakout session, and I spent about 20 minutes with him talking about the funding and stuff. And this, of course, is him telling me, and I'll be telling you, so it's third hand. But I've been on a quest for the money, because that's really what it's about.
Right.
Not what you necessarily, whatever, but what you want or know, whatever. And he said that realistically, somewhere between 10 and 20% max is what you'll get from the county out of what's, and I'll get his card to you, and I think it would be good for you guys to go to kind of touch bases with him about that, because, this is something that he does statewide, litigation type stuff. So anyway, for what it's worth.
Well, anyway, I was just giving my report there, and I thought it was kind of like,
Well, I think the take home here is that there are two pathways that LAFCO identified, and so that's important for the community and the board to understand.
Yeah, and I believe that if you Google incorporation, the state LAFCO board has a very, and I believe it's like about 2 pages, and basically
it might be the same document.
yeah, it's probably the same thing, and it basically goes through the steps that you have to take. It's very educational. I highly recommend that if you're interested in the subject, no matter which side you're on it, it's very educational to read it.
Great, thank you. That concludes our active committee reports, and we're on to staff reports. So Support Services Department, Lane Trask, page 327.
Okay. We have just a few very minor highlights. We have about 98.6% of our annual budget for customer adjustments, and so far we've not had any customers coming to the board to ask for variances. Knock on wood. Let's hope that continues for the last couple of months. That'd be good. The engagement letter with our auditors, we received it, and as soon as we are both in agreement on the scope of the work, we will sign it, and we'll get a schedule, so I'll be able to report on that probably next time. I just wanted to go, I don't usually read through these, but since we are a little bit early, I'll take a very brief moment and highlight an area of the Treasurer's Report. The last several pages of every Treasurer's Report contain a listing of every check the district writes. This is called the Disbursements Report, and it's for a given month. It provides transparency, it provides public disclosure for all expenditures of district funds. All checks and vendor payments are listed. However, we do redact out certain pieces of information that we are legally bound to keep confidential, and ethically bound to keep confidential. For instance, customer names and identifying information are removed because we run the customer refund and deposit refund checks through accounts payable, so we have to take that out. Payroll amounts obviously are also, the names of separate employees are not listed. They are simply listed as actual total salary information by position is listed on the State Controller's Office website every year where there's a report that we do for that. We also have a regular Public Records Act request from a group called Transparent California, which not only lists the total salary and benefit amounts by position, they actually request that we put in the names of our employees. And since the litigation over the city of Bell, that is considered illegal, We are not enjoined, however, to provide addresses or contact information for each employee. Thank heavens. But we are, but that. So if you want to, you can go to Transparent California's website, and they use the same format as the state controller's office. They just actually have us leave in the names. Other updates that the board probably should know. We've completed the shift to plain paper utility billing, so we've moved away from the postcards, which, given the age and decrepitude of our printer, was probably a really good thing. It's just gotten so hard to find parts and get service for those old printers that was one good thing. The other reason is, of course, the U.S. Postal Service sorting machinery doesn't always like our postcards, and sometimes our customers end up not getting their bills.
James,
Really?
I don't know why it's doing that.
I guess it's time for you to stop your.
Anyway, so the consolidation of the billing to one cycle per month, so we can, because of the radio rates, we can make the whole community in a couple of days instead of having to go piece by piece. That also allowed us to contract with a third-party printing service, so we can actually send plain paper utility bills with a return envelope for not much different rate than postcards. Who knew? So that's been a fairly good thing, and that's probably something that the community, might come to comment to you about. Yes.
Dennis doesn't like it.
Oh, yeah, it's great. It's just one of these days going to remember to call us before we get shut off. I have burned one of them up already, but no, I was going to ask about we can come down and pay with our credit card, but we can't pay over the phone with our credit card.
Right.
That seems to me to be something that needs to be at least thought about and discussed.
It actually has been, and there's a state level regulation about acquiring credit card information on the phone, because we can't verify the name, we can't check ID, we can't look at the signature. And I believe at the time they said that was pretty new when I first started here 6 or 7 years ago, and I believe the decision at that time was made that we just, unless it's a situation where someone is locked, or unless they are out of town, and they can't, so we take it in a couple of emergency situations, or if the computers are down, sometimes I'll authorize that, but generally we don't do it.
As long as there's that ability, that's what I was thinking about, being out of town.
Yeah. Those would actually be two situations where we are willing to take credit cards over the phone, but for normal payments, we tell people to go online, we tell people to drop them in the Dropbox, and that's usually better. The online payment, and this is another thing we hear complaints about from time to time, we are actually forbidden by law to absorb the cost, the third-party provider's cost of the online payment. So if you go online through our website and use your bank account, you can pay up to $1.20 in service charge. We are legally not allowed to pay that for you unless we use the money from the Parks and General Fund to do that, which would be, I think, not helpful. And the voters said that wasn't a good idea. So, on the other hand, in the private sector businesses are not allowed to charge to pass those through. They have to absorb them. So it's just one of those little bits of legal weird trivia where people say, well, why do I have to pay this service charge? Well, we don't see that money. That's actually the third-party provider, and we're actually not allowed to absorb it.
So utilities are not considered private because they all charge.
Well, utilities, like PG&E is a private company. It's a state-granted monopoly, but it's still considered a private corporation. We're not.
We have they charge that fee. PG&E does, so does.
That may have to do with their charter with the state.
Yeah, I just was curious.
Yeah, but we actually, I've had people say, well, the mall, the vendors, vendors at the mall can take it. You know, Kohl's doesn't charge me this. Okay, no, they don't.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get the
Oh, no, it's funny. It's just, I find it kind of amusing. But yeah, that's a little trivia for you. So just in case you run into a constituent who says, hey, what's up with that? So, you know. Anyway, and we have resumed our cycle of lock notices. We are trying to do both IVR calls and door hangers for the folks that are getting locked. And we are trying to be compliant with SB 998, which requires a minimum of 60 days. So, and that's all I have.
Thank you. Operations Department, James Henry.
Nothing further to add. Thank you.
I would just like to take a quick moment and say, you know, we had a lot of thank yous for Colleen for the work that went into the budget here, and we're often focused on recreation, but just that if the public were to read through the amount of tasks that are packed into each one of these paragraphs that are in the operations department report, it's pretty remarkable that you get all that work done in a month. And thank you for running a great functioning operations department, James. Thank you. And on to Parks and Recreation, Leslie Frisbee.
I don't have anything to add. I just want to remind everybody that Music in the Park starts next Thursday. From 6 to 8.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Free music.
Free music. You can go to the farmer's market first and then head over to the park. Good.
Go up to the airport.
Go to the airport.
There's all kinds of stuff in the summer.
I wanted to make a comment. I really liked reading in the bottom of the Teen and Community Center. Staff is working on ways to increase our collaborative efforts, specifically towards creating youth leadership programs and opportunities. I think it's always great to have opportunities for kids to learn leadership. I spoke with General Manager Orsini about a couple conversations that have come across my plate recently about collaborative governance, both for school-age children and adults. And I think it would be fantastic if we find ways to bring that style, either collaborative governance and leadership. I mean, it really kind of all amounts to the same thing, knowing how to work well together. Makes good leaders. So thank you for being a part of that, bringing that forward. On to our general manager's report. Gregory Orsini.
Nothing to add, thank you.
On the general manager, I forwarded you the deal on signing on to the water initiative. Did you get that? Did I get that to you? With all the agencies that have signed on to that, and would like us to sign on to that.
We already had that.
Oh, and we weren't on the list. So, we weren't on the list. So, can we give us some notification to the local? Yeah, thanks.
Well, likewise with thanking all the departments. It's another great time to thank our general manager for all his hard work. And again, thanks to Emily for supporting the district, supporting us. And we will miss seeing you here next month. Let's see, the next item then is the president's report. I don't have anything, and I'll turn to item F4. I guess if I'm in this role, do I do a president's report instead of a board comment?
Whatever.
Sure.
So I would just report out quickly on the opportunity to go to legislative days. So I attended legislative days with Director Mayo and General Manager Orsini, and I'm sure it's no surprise to most of us that both our General Manager and Director Mayo are well known in that crowd, first name basis.
I'm not proud of that.
We have great relationships in that group, and Legislative Days was very informative. So I brought you back a little piece. There was the 50-year celebration for the Community Services District Association, so we each got little pins. And then I brought back these documents that go over legislative effort that the Special Services District Association does. So it's interesting to read through the information provided and see what the association is doing for us. And then just add that, it's invaluable to get to go to these events and get to do the networking and meeting other representatives and staff from special districts. So I highly recommend it. And then they give great swag. So I put some water bottles and fun little tape measures, whatnot over there. So if anyone, if board members or staff wish to take them, they're there. I'll open it up for board
There's
comment.
one more thing. We're doing the elections for office at Aqua, and we'll get this in by June. Did we get the paper and stuff on that? And then we're going to get the applications put in by June 28th, I believe. So,
We didn't receive anything.
yeah. So anyway, we need to get that done. That doesn't have to be brought to the board. That's just for the nomination, and Greg can sign that for me, and I'll give that, and then it comes back with the recommendation from Aquafruit, and then that'll come to the board. That'll be, but so anyway, I got to get that to you. Sorry.
Any other board comment? No? I do have one more item, and this is available for the public as well if you're interested. It's the outreach for districts called Districts Make the Difference. And so there's just some good highlights, and you'll notice on the state map that it lists 6 districts, and McKinleyville Community Services District is highlighted on that, as well as a video contest, and then just more information about what special districts are all about. So I gave each board member one of these, and I do have extra copies. I don't know if there's anyone on staff who's interested in sharing them in any venue, but I'm happy to provide extra
I
copies.
thought it should go to Leslie.
Leslie's already notified the high school and the Boys and Girls Club.
Excellent. Thank you.
Should have known that.
Well, with that, if there's nothing else, then, is there a public comment on board comment?
Thank you so much for your attention to our budget and to all of these items. However, I just wanted to add my sincere hope that our Mactown Museum, our Hub Museum that may end this weekend will have your support to Kelly Barrett and Twyla Sanchez, our steering committee. That use of space is remarkable and a delightful addition to the quality of life we have here in McKinleyville. I'm hoping that we'll have an extension past June. I don't know the specifics. And so thank you for coming and visiting and participating and doing what you can to fill our empty spaces at the McKinleyville Shopping Center. I'm also interested in figuring out a storage area for our senior center. We have items that are in our public museum and they were moving them to our donated spaces at the Rainbow storage area. And I don't know if you have connections or can help in this unique transition of donated items for fundraising. They currently have plans of trying to store them until August. And although I mentioned if we could start selling some of the items sooner, I don't know. So I do have something I'm sure you all are aware of, and that is we have a few eyesores, like the Bigfoot gas station, and where the Java Hut, the gas station here on this corner, and that amazing barn that everybody sees when they come
If I could,
Yes.
public comment we hold at the beginning
Right.
of the meeting.
Yes.
So thank you for your comments. We bring it back if it's related to district business at
Sure.
the beginning of the meeting.
Well, I just thought I would
Thank you.
stick around and hope that our best creative collaboration and moving forward on our
It takes a village.
use for
It does.
for
Thank you
places
for
and
coming
business.
here tonight.
I'll aim for next
Maybe
time.
I can catch you on the way out.
That'd be great.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you.
It sparked something in my mind. I went to
Okay, board
the
comment?
pop-up museum's big night when the students gave their presentation on their project for the town center, which was a packed room. Dennis asked me to record that, but they recorded it themselves. So if anybody wants to see it, we can.
How long is
get
the
it from
recording, do you know?
Maybe about 40 minutes.
Oh, too long for us here, but I'd like to see it.
I can forward you the email that had that.
All right. With that, we can adjourn.